My name is Salvador Ricardo, and this semester I worked on the to-do list optimizer. My mentor and project owner was Dr. Monique Ross. In this project, I worked on the backend server, including the database and the backend RESTful API. In this video, I will show 3 user stories which, even though were created separately, they belong together as a collection of user stories. The 3 user stories are number 680, which is the registered user, 695, which is update user, and 697, which is delete user. All these user stories are vital to the application because they represent the first step towards creating a connected application, allowing users to have a persistent data through different devices, save previous itineraries, and their favorite task. User story number 680 was implemented so new users could register for the application. This user story was completed by creating and implementing a schema in the database. I used MongoDB to create the schema and Mongoose to connect to the server. As we can see, the schema consists of multiple fields which store the user information. This includes the name, their email, phone number, and all their places. For the registration part, the user will only input their name and their phone. The last field, which is called places, is used to reference another schema which has all the places and subsequent tasks for each place. This modular database allows us to work with the data in an easier way and debug much faster. Also allows us to change information in specific schemas without losing information on other schemas. After creating the schema, I created a controller where I would add the user to the database and create a route for the call to work. As we can see, the route is the address where the user is going to be directed when they want to sign up. Since this is a mobile application, this is all hidden from the user. As we can see in the top, this function which gets the user information and completes all the fields in database. This function serves as the connection between the front end and the database. When the user inputs the information in the front end, an API call will be made to this function. In this function, I'm creating a new user right here. Then we populate the user and their profile with the given information, and then we check if the email is already being used. If the email is being used, we will send a message to the user that the email is already in use, please to choose another email. All accounts will have an email verification sent to them, and if the email is not verified, the account will be deleted within 7 days. This security feature allows to make sure there are no multiple accounts for the same user or for the same email. If the email is valid and unique, then the new user will be saved into the database. Now, using the application Postman, I will show how adding a user will be from the developer perspective. Since this is a backend server user story, I will manually input the user information. I decided to create a user with my name, email, and phone number. Here on the top, we can see the route where the API will work. Currently, the server is running locally, therefore the address will be localhost 8000/signup, which is the route for the controller. When live, the address will change, but the sign up part after the slash will stay the same. After inputting all the information into Postman and pressing the button to send the application, we will make a call to a server which will then return the previous SYN function and will add the user to the database if the email is correct. Since this is a backend user story, I integrated a call to display the user information that was just entered. As we can see, the user has been added correctly and has been assigned a random ID, seen right here, for which it can later be recognized. We can also see that the place's identity has a null value. That's because the users have been recently created and hasn't added any places or tasks. At the end of the video, I will demonstrate how it will look when a user has added a place to their account. Although the server is hosted locally, I used MLab, which is a free database host, to have all our information. As we can see, again, the user has been successfully added to the Postman as Postman indicated. This means the register user story works and therefore is ready for deployment. We can see the user ID is the same in all instances of this presentation. This ID, which ends in C827D6, is the way to identify the user. Now, the second part of this collection of user story is the ability to update a user. This is important so we as developers have the most updated information of our users and can reach them better. Here we can see the function which modifies the information about a user. This function first receives all the new information and then the user ID, which is now how the user will be identified. After finding the user in the database, the function will then grab all the information right here given in the request, and it will grab all the information which is given in a key value pair and updates the information. Below the function, we can see a route where the API call this function. As we can see, when this route is called, the function of the user over here will be called. Here we can see again the path which calls the function in its entirety. The only difference now is that the user ID must be passed in the path. When the path is called right here in the send button, the information will be changed. The function will only replace the fields which contains new information. If a field is not modified, then it will remain the same in the database. Here I changed the email for my account. Here we can see the information being returned to me as a developer and how it has been modified. The only field modified was the email. This function also checks if any of the new information being entered is already being used. This feature is only used if the email or phone number are being updated. If a new email is introduced, then a verification email will be sent to the user. Here we can see in MLab again the change in the database, which is consistent with our test in Postman. We can see how only the email changed and the rest of the information is still the same. The name, the phone number, and most important, the user ID, it stays the same, as we can see in both of these. This way we can see that in fact the user information was updated as per the project owner qualifications. Therefore, the user is ready for deployment and has been integrated into the application. And last but not least, in this collection of user stories, we have to delete user story. This feature is important because we want to allow the user to terminate their account if they so desire. But it also allows us developers to delete users who don't comply with our terms of service or have not verified their email. This function works much like the update function in that it receives a call and then it receives the user information, mainly their user ID, then deletes the user. The user is found by the corresponding user ID. As a security measure, this function only deletes one user and it needs the full user ID to find them. This way we don't have any data loss if a mistake happens. Subsequently, all the user IDs are randomly generated and non-sequential. Therefore, they are not vulnerable to an attack. Now, using Postman again, we can delete the test user we created. Again, we can see that the system uses the user ID to identify and delete the user. Therefore, only one user is deleted. In this case, we can check the ending digits of the user ID. We can prove it is the user ending in C827D6, which is our test user. A success message is given so the developer knows it has successfully deleted the user. Now, when we check in MLab, we can see how the user was deleted. Before, we had 11 users registered, but now only 10 users remain in the database. We can see all the remainder users' unique user ID for which they can be identified and unique emails for which they use to log in. Now, to finish, I also want to demonstrate how the information flows when a place is added to a user. Since we deleted the user we created, I will add a place to an existing user. For this test, I will use Kiana Kasmai. By getting her user ID, I can add a place to her list. As we can see in the result in Postman, before the user adds a place, the place identity is empty, therefore it shows empty brackets. After adding some places to the user Kiana Kasmai, we can see that searching for the user will show the user and all these places when they will then be able to complete their task. These places are connected to their creator in the database by their author name and identity, which is their user ID, which is the same as who created it. Here we can see how after one place was added, and then here after the second place was added, is the whole user and all their places. This completes my video on the most important user stories I worked on during this semester. This collection of user stories, although were divided into three, so it was easier to create and manage, represent the beginning of a safe and reliable user experience. Managing the user information and keeping it safe is one of the most important aspects of the application. I want to thank Dr. Monique Ross for allowing me to work on this project and my teammates for the support. Thank you.